Welcome to Bedtime Finance Stories. Tonight's episode is titled Quiet Lessons for a Restful Financial Life. Finance for Sleep. From the very beginning of human history, money has moved quietly in rhythms, arriving, departing, and returning again like the steady tide. These rhythms have shaped lives, carrying both burden and relief, and always reminding us that wealth is never still, but always flowing. In this gentle reflection, we will wander through the stories of debt and savings, of crises endured, and of the simple wisdom found in balance. You will hear how small, patient acts can bring comfort, how simplicity protects against storms, and how wealth is often discovered not in abundance, but in rest. So, as you settle into stillness, allow the calm of these stories to guide your thoughts into quieter places. With each word, may the noise of the day soften and the weight of worry fade into silence. Now, let us begin. Quiet lessons for a restful financial life. Finance for sleep. Quiet lessons for a restful financial life. Finance for sleep, the slow rhythm of money. Money has always moved like a tide. It arrives, it lingers, and eventually it recedes. When we look back at history, we see that markets have risen and fallen with the patience of centuries, never rushing, never truly still. The stock market crash of 1929, the oil crises of the 1970s, and the global recession of 2008 were all reminders that wealth flows in cycles. Each crisis began with a slow build-up, a whisper of imbalance, followed by a sudden break, like a quiet dam bursting after years of strain. In personal life, money behaves with the same steady rhythm. A paycheck arrives, bills leave, and the small remainder finds its way into savings. When people forget this rhythm, they may overspend, chasing urgency, mistaking money for something permanent. Yet money was never meant to stand still. It was always meant to move, like water from hand to hand, bank to bank, generation to generation. The lesson is not to cling too tightly, but to observe calmly. Like the gentle turn of seasons, finances reveal themselves in patterns. One can plan, but one must also accept that change is inevitable. What matters is not control, but awareness. The quiet burden of debt has always carried a weight that is both invisible and heavy. In the early 1800s, debtors' prisons stood as monuments to financial missteps. Men and women who borrowed more than they could repay were confined not only by walls, but by shame. In modern times, the prison walls are gone, yet the burden remains. Credit cards, student loans, and mortgages press upon the quiet corners of people's minds, often at night when the world is still and thoughts grow louder. To carry debt is to carry an echo of promises not yet fulfilled. Each monthly payment is a reminder of a past decision, sometimes wise, sometimes hurried. Yet debt, when seen with calm reflection, can also be understood differently. It is not only a burden, but also a bridge. A student loan bridges youth to education. A mortgage bridges present to home ownership. The bridge is long, and the walk requires patience, but it is still a path forward. The key is not to fear the weight, but to walk slowly under it, step by step. Like a steady traveler crossing a mountain pass, the journey becomes bearable when the pace is gentle and deliberate. The gentle art of saving. Savings often appear small, almost insignificant when they begin. A coin in a jar, a few dollars set aside, a modest contribution to a retirement account. Yet over time, these small acts resemble seeds planted in fertile soil. With patience, they grow into trees and eventually into forests. Compound interest, though a technical concept, is essentially a story of quiet growth, a story of time doing the heavy lifting. In the 19th century, community savings banks encouraged workers to set aside even a fraction of their wages. Farmers stored grain not only for winter, but for years of drought. These acts of foresight created cushions that softened the harsh blows of unexpected events. Modern savings accounts continue this tradition, offering security not in abundance, but in preparedness. To save is to create silence within the noise of financial life. It is a pause, a breath, a small shield against uncertainty. The world may change suddenly, but savings remain as anchors, steady and unmoved. Lessons from crises. Economic crises are storms in the long sea of history. They come without mercy, disrupting lives, reshaping nations, and forcing generations to adapt. The 2008 financial collapse revealed how fragile modern systems could be. Families lost homes, jobs vanished, and markets shook. Yet in the quiet years that followed, people learned again the value of caution, restraint, and modesty. These crises remind us that finance is not only about growth, but about resilience. Just as trees bend in strong winds rather than breaking, so must individuals and societies bend when economies falter. The lesson is not to expect calm seas forever, but to prepare sails and anchors in advance, knowing storms will return. And yet, even in these storms, there is quiet wisdom. Crises reveal what is essential and strip away illusions of permanence. They remind us that security is not found in numbers alone, but in balance, adaptability, and patience. The habit of simplicity. At the core of a restful financial life lies simplicity. Simplicity is the act of needing less, of valuing use over display, of choosing stability over noise. History is full of those who lived quietly and securely, not because they had more, but because they required less. Farmers who lived within the yield of their land. Families who cooked from simple ingredients. Workers who saved modestly but consistently. In today's world of endless consumption, simplicity is a form of strength. It allows one to step aside from the constant call to spend and to find peace and sufficiency. A smaller home, a slower car, fewer possessions, all can become anchors of restfulness, freeing both mind and wallet from constant demand. Simplicity is not deprivation, it is clarity. It is the quiet realization that enough is not only sufficient, but abundant. Restful wealth, wealth in its truest form, is not measured in numbers, but in peace. A restful financial life is one where obligations are light, savings are steady, and desires are modest. It is not the chase for more, but the calm acceptance of enough. To rest financially is to close the day without fear of bills, to open the morning without panic of loss. Throughout history, those who found peace in wealth were rarely those who possessed the most, but those who lived in balance. Philosophers, monks, and quiet households have taught that security is not in abundance, but in harmony. The lesson repeats itself across centuries, whispered in different tongues, but with the same meaning. Peace is the greatest form of prosperity. As the story of finance closes for tonight, remember that money will always move. It will arrive, it will depart, it will return again. Our task is not to stop its motion, but to find calm within its flow. The flow of generosity. Money, when shared, takes on a different character. It no longer belongs solely to the individual, but becomes a thread woven into the fabric of others' lives. Acts of giving, whether a small donation, a helping hand to a neighbor, or a legacy passed to children, carry a quiet strength. They remind us that finances are not only about survival or growth, but about connection. History offers many examples. Communities in hardship pooled resources through cooperatives, ensuring that no family was left entirely without. Ancient traditions emphasized almsgiving as a spiritual act, linking material wealth to inner peace. Even in modern times, philanthropy often emerges most strongly in the wake of personal security. Those who have enough often discover that true rest is found not in holding tightly, but in releasing gently. Generosity does not require abundance. It requires perspective. A modest gift given with sincerity can ease another's burden and, in turn, ease the giver's own restless thoughts. In sharing, the cycle of money softens and wealth becomes less about accumulation and more about harmony. The stillness of long-term perspective. In the restless world of finance, urgency is often mistaken for necessity. Markets flash with sudden gains and losses. News headlines cry out warnings of collapse or opportunity, and many are tempted to move quickly, as though wealth can be captured in a single hurried moment. Yet history reminds us that those who find peace are often those who look further, beyond the noise of the day, into the still horizon of decades. The Dutch merchants of the 17th century built fortunes not by chasing daily prices, but by investing in shipping routes that took years to complete. Families in Japan nurtured intergenerational businesses, understanding that true wealth was not measured in a quarter or a year, but in centuries of survival. Even in the simple acts of planting an orchard or storing wine to mature, the same principle was alive. Patience transforms time into quiet value. For the individual, adopting this stillness means resisting the urge to check numbers endlessly, to panic at each shift, or to despair at temporary losses. Instead, it means seeing finance as a long road. A retirement account grows like a tree, slowly, and cannot be rushed. A home gathers meaning across decades, not months. The mind, when focused on the long term, finds freedom from constant anxiety. Long-term perspective is not only about money. It is about living with a rhythm that respects the slowness of life. A restful financial life does not chase the present moment too tightly, but breathes calmly, allowing tomorrow to unfold at its own pace. The balance between work and rest. Work has always been the primary channel through which money flows into life. From the earliest barter systems to modern employment contracts, labor has been the quiet foundation of survival. Yet throughout history, there has also been a temptation to lean too heavily on work, to equate endless hours of labor with greater security. Ancient farmers worked from dawn to dusk. Industrial workers filled factories with ceaseless motion, and in our own age, emails and screens glow long past midnight. But rest is also part of financial life. Without rest, work becomes unsustainable. Economies have proven this again and again. The labor movements of the late 19th century emerged not merely to demand higher wages, but also to protect hours of rest. The 8-hour workday was not just about productivity. It was about balance, recognizing that well-being cannot be traded endlessly for money. On the personal level, balance emerges when one accepts that income, while important, cannot replace health, relationships, or peace of mind. A worker who sacrifices all rest for wages may earn more today, but risks exhaustion tomorrow. By contrast, those who choose a slower rhythm, balancing effort with recovery, often discover that financial peace is not measured by total earnings, but by sustainability. Even great investors and business leaders have spoken of the power of stepping back, of letting time, not force, do the work. Sleep itself becomes a kind of investment, restoring clarity for decisions and reducing the anxious mistakes that arise from fatigue. Just as savings grow quietly in the background, so too does energy rebuild itself in stillness. Balance between work and rest is not a luxury. It is a necessity for a life that is financially sound and emotionally calm. In the gentle rhythm between effort and pause, one finds not only productivity, but also the foundation of peace. The seasons of financial life. Life, like the natural world, unfolds in seasons. Each stage brings its own lessons, its own financial patterns, and its own rhythm of calm and concern. Childhood is a season of dependence, where money is unseen, moving quietly in the background of parents' choices. Youth brings the first encounter with independence, often marked by earnings that are small but exciting, and debts that begin to form like gentle shadows. Adulthood is the long summer of responsibility, where income rises, but so do obligations. Mortgages, family expenses, and the weight of planning for the future gather in this season. It can be overwhelming, like standing in the height of harvest, unsure how much to store, how much to spend, and how much to let go. Yet even here, with careful rhythm, one can move steadily, neither rushing nor falling behind. Later, life is autumn. Income may slow, but the fruits of earlier patience begin to show. Savings, investments, and simpler habits bring stability. Autumn is not about growth, but about savoring what has been prepared. It is a time when less is needed and more is appreciated. Finally, winter arrives, quiet, reflective, and slower. Here, financial needs are smaller, but the wisdom of a lifetime becomes most visible. Support may flow the other way, as gifts and guidance to younger generations. To see finances in seasons is to remove the pressure of permanence. Nothing is fixed, and nothing lasts forever. Each stage has its demands, but also its quiet strengths. Just as farmers trust that winter will pass and spring will return, so too can we trust that financial burdens are temporary, shifting as life turns. When accepted in this way, money becomes less of a constant struggle and more of a rhythm. It rises and falls with time, just as we do. And within that cycle, there is always space to breathe, to pause, and to rest. Contentment as quiet wealth. In the endless pursuit of more, many lose sight of the calm that comes from enough. Advertisements whisper constantly of newer things, brighter opportunities, and larger ambitions. Yet across history, those who discovered contentment often lived the most restful financial lives, regardless of the size of their accounts. In ancient philosophy, the Stoics spoke of sufficiency, that wealth was not in accumulation, but in the ability to be satisfied with what was already at hand. Farmers who ate from their fields, artisans who worked with steady hands, and families who gathered with simple meals all found a peace that no gold could improve. In Eastern traditions, the teaching was much the same. Simplicity and gratitude created wealth that could not be stolen or diminished. Contentment is not about rejecting growth, but about loosening the grip of endless desire. When a person believes they must always have more, rest remains elusive. When a person finds comfort in what is present, even a modest life feels abundant. A quiet meal shared without debt, a small home kept without fear, and an evening without financial worry. These are treasures that numbers alone cannot measure. Modern finance often measures success in net worth, but the heart measures differently. A person who rests soundly, free from restless longing, is already rich. Contentment shifts the gaze from what is missing to what is here. It transforms money from a source of anxiety into a gentle companion, serving needs without dictating desires. To embrace contentment is to embrace stillness. It is a reminder that the race is not endless and the finish line is not always more. Sometimes the greatest financial victory is simply to pause, breathe, and whisper, "This is enough." Legacy and the gentle, passing forward. Wealth does not end with the individual. Like a stream that flows into a larger river, money continues beyond one life, touching others in ways both seen and unseen. For centuries, families have passed forward not only coins and property, but lessons, habits, and quiet philosophies of how to live with money. In medieval towns, guild masters left their apprentices not only tools, but guidance in how to use them. In villages, farmers handed down fields along with the wisdom of when to sow and when to rest. Even in modest households, small inheritances carried deep meaning, not because of size, but because of the story they represented. A jar of coins, a treasured book, a home filled with memories, all became legacies that whispered of endurance. Today, legacy extends beyond material wealth. It includes the values of simplicity, the patience of saving, the caution of avoiding debt, and the calmness of balance. Children may inherit accounts, but more importantly, they inherit attitudes. If they learn to see money not as a source of endless worry, but as a gentle tool, then they inherit true wealth, the kind that carries peace into their own days. Legacy is not only for families. Communities also benefit when generosity is built into one's final chapters. A scholarship fund, a library donation, a small act of charity. These continue the cycle of giving long after the giver has rested. Wealth becomes less about possession and more about continuity, a quiet ripple across time. In the end, legacy is not measured by how much is left, but by how it is carried forward. A modest life, lived with calm and wisdom, can leave behind a gift greater than riches. The example of peace. The silence of financial freedom. Financial freedom is often imagined as a grand achievement. Vast accounts, sprawling estates, or a life untouched by worry. Yet in truth, its essence is far quieter. It is the simple absence of fear when bills arrive. It is the steady calm of knowing that choices are guided not by desperation, but by preference. Throughout history, financial freedom has appeared in many humble forms. A craftsman in an old city who owned his tools outright, free from debt, could live with more rest than a nobleman entangled in endless obligations. A smallholder farmer with enough harvest for the winter carried more peace than a merchant forever chasing new markets. Freedom was not always about abundance, it was about release. In modern times, the silence of financial freedom is felt when obligations no longer press as heavily. The mortgage is paid, or perhaps it was never taken. Debt is cleared, savings sit patiently, and expenses align with modest income. In this silence, there is no need for frantic labor, no racing against time. Life moves at its own pace, steady and sufficient. True financial freedom is not the power to buy everything, but the ease of not needing everything. It is the calm ability to step back, to rest without guilt, and to spend without fear. It is the gentle balance where money serves quietly, rather than rules loudly. And when this freedom arrives, whether early in life or late, it does not shout. It whispers, it rests in the background like still air at night, carrying no weight, no noise, only peace. Gratitude and the gentle closing of the day. At the end of each day, when lights grow dim and the world becomes still, gratitude quietly takes its place beside us. In finance, gratitude is not often spoken of, yet it carries immense weight. To pause and notice what has been provided, a meal prepared, a roof above, a debt paid, or even a small saving untouched, is to find wealth beyond numbers. History shows us that gratitude has always been woven into the language of survival. Farmers gave thanks for the harvest, even when it was modest. Merchants offered prayers for a safe passage of ships. Families, gathered around small tables, found comfort in meals that may not have been abundant but were shared. Gratitude turned scarcity into sufficiency, and sufficiency into quiet abundance. In modern times, gratitude softens the harsh edge of comparison. Without it, one may chase endlessly, always aware of what is lacking. With it, even a modest life feels whole. Gratitude transforms a paycheck into provision, a budget into clarity, and a savings account into a promise of tomorrow. It invites rest, for the restless desire of more grows quiet when enough is acknowledged. As the day closes, gratitude is a companion that requires nothing but recognition. It does not demand grand gestures, only attention. A whispered thought, a slow breath, a quiet acknowledgement of what is already here. This is the simple practice that turns financial life into restful life. And in this silence, sleep comes more easily, for the mind, no longer chasing, no longer comparing, finally finds peace. Rest as the truest wealth after all the lessons of money, of earning, saving, borrowing, spending, and giving. There remains a truth that lingers softly. The greatest wealth is rest. To sleep without the heavy weight of debt pressing on the mind, to rise without the gnawing fear of scarcity, is a richness that numbers cannot equal. History offers quiet reminders of this. Monarchs with treasure vaults often slept uneasily, fearing betrayal or loss. Merchants with vast caravans sometimes carried more worry than joy. By contrast, those with little but enough often rested peacefully. A shepherd who ended his day knowing his flock was safe, a worker who returned home to a modest meal, a teacher who lived simply but securely, all were wealthier in rest than many with overflowing coffers. Rest is not only sleep, but also the calm rhythm of a life unhurried by financial fear. It is the ability to spend time with family without the shadow of bills, to enjoy quiet moments without the chase for more. In this sense, rest is not the absence of work, but the presence of balance. It is the final fruit of patience, simplicity, contentment, and gratitude. To build a restful financial life is not to chase endlessly upward, but to arrive at a place where stillness is possible. Money flows in and out. Obligations are steady but not crushing, and choices are made from clarity rather than fear. This is the state where one can close the day gently, whispering to oneself, "It is enough. I am safe." I can wrest harmony between time and money have always been intertwined, like two rivers flowing side by side. One can often be exchanged for the other. Hours of work bring income, while money saved may purchase moments of leisure. Yet the balance between these two is delicate. Many spend too much time chasing money, only to discover too late that time itself cannot be bought back. History offers countless reminders. Ancient laborers gave entire lifetimes to monuments that outlasted them, their wealth measured not in coins, but in hours surrendered. Industrial workers traded health for wages, while a few who chose simplicity carried with them the quiet gift of longer, gentler days. Even today, the struggle continues. Long commutes, endless overtime, the constant pull between income and living. True peace comes when time and money meet in harmony. Enough money to live without fear, enough time to live without regret. Neither extreme, endless work with no rest, or endless leisure with no foundation, brings calm. It is in the middle ground, where money supports but does not consume, that life breathes easily. To honor time is to recognize that money's purpose is not accumulation, but support. A meal unhurried, an evening free of worry, a walk without haste. These moments are the quiet dividends of a life balanced. When time is respected as much as income, finances lose their sharpness and become instead a soft companion to living. Resilience in simplicity. Simplicity has long been the quiet anchor of resilience. When life grows uncertain, when markets tremble, jobs shift, or unexpected expenses arise, it is often those who live simply who withstand the storm with the most calm. A modest lifestyle, unburdened by excess, bends gently under pressure rather than breaking. History has shown this lesson again and again. During economic depressions, families who knew how to cook with little, mend clothes, or share resources endured while others faltered. In villages where wealth was scarce, resilience was not measured in gold, but in the ability to stretch what was available, to find satisfaction in enough. Even great empires, built on lavish spending, collapsed under the weight of their excess, while smaller, simpler communities survived quietly for centuries. Simplicity is not merely the absence of possessions, It is the presence of clarity. It is choosing needs over wants, valuing durability over display, and accepting that comfort does not always require extravagance. Those who practice simplicity find that their lives are naturally more adaptable. A smaller home is easier to maintain. Fewer expenses bring fewer worries, and modest habits require little adjustment when times grow hard. Resilience is not built in moments of crisis, but in the habits formed long before. The person who saves steadily, who avoids unnecessary debt, who lives with modesty, discovers that when storms arrive, the foundation holds firm. Simplicity does not prevent hardship, but it softens its impact, like a tree whose deep roots keep it steady when winds rise. In simplicity, one also finds a kind of quiet pride, the recognition that life is full, not because of constant consumption, but because of balance. This balance creates resilience that cannot easily be shaken, no matter how uncertain the future becomes. The gentle rhythm of daily choices. Finance is often spoken of in large terms: mortgages, investments, retirement plans. But its true shape is formed by the smallest choices of daily life. Each purchase, each decision to save or to spend, is like a quiet brushstroke painting the larger picture of financial peace. History reminds us that great fortunes and great hardships alike have often grown from simple habits. Merchants who recorded their accounts with discipline, farmers who set aside a portion of each harvest, families who lived within their means, all built stability not through sudden windfalls, but through repeated daily actions. By contrast, extravagance and neglect, even in small amounts, slowly eroded security until crises arrived. In modern life, daily choices remain the true rhythm of financial well-being. Preparing meals at home rather than dining out every evening, walking instead of driving short distances, choosing to delay a purchase until it is truly needed. These actions may seem small, almost invisible, yet over months and years they accumulate into quiet strength. A dollar unspent becomes a habit of restraint. A moment of patience becomes a shield against future debt. The beauty of daily choices lies in their accessibility. Wealth is not required to make them, only awareness. Each person, regardless of income, has the power to shape their days with intention. This is the essence of a restful financial life. Not perfection, but steady rhythm, repeated softly across time. And as these choices align, life begins to feel lighter. Money no longer dictates with urgency, but follows gently, supporting rather than controlling. Daily discipline transforms into daily peace, until even the act of saying "not today" to unnecessary expense feels like a quiet victory. Trusting the future. While living the present, money often tempts us to live in two places at once. The present calls with immediate needs and small pleasures, while the future whispers with uncertainty, urging us to prepare. Finding rest between these two voices is one of the quietest, yet most important, lessons of financial life. Throughout history, those who endured hardship did so not only by saving for tomorrow, but by living fully in the day. Farmers stored grain for winter, yet also shared bread with neighbors. Sailors carried supplies for long voyages, yet celebrated each safe harbor along the way. Families saved dowries and inheritances, but still marked occasions with modest gatherings, music, and meals. The balance was never perfect, but it was essential. Life continued even as preparation for the future unfolded. In modern times, this tension remains. It is easy to fall too far in either direction, spending recklessly on the present or hoarding anxiously for the future. Both extremes disturb peace, but when the two are held gently together, money becomes a bridge, not a burden. A budget that includes small joys alongside savings, a plan that honors both leisure and prudence. These create a rhythm that nurtures both now and later. Trusting the future does not mean ignoring it, nor does living the present mean neglecting tomorrow. It is a matter of proportion, of balance. The present is where life is actually lived, and the future is where life hopes to continue. When both are respected, rest grows naturally. To rest financially, then, is to breathe between these two moments, placing enough aside to feel safe tomorrow, while also finding gratitude for what today already provides. This is not a formula, but a mindset, a steady way of seeing money as a gentle tool rather than a restless master. The closing circle of financial wisdom. As the long journey of money is considered, one begins to see that finance itself is a circle. It begins with dependence, flows into growth and responsibility, bends into stability, and eventually returns to simplicity once more. At the end, the circle is not about accumulation, but about understanding. In early life, we depend on others. In middle years, we depend on ourselves. And later, we may again depend gently on family, community, or the systems we once contributed to. This cycle is not failure, but nature. Just as seasons turn from spring to winter, so too does the financial life turn back upon itself. History offers quiet affirmations of this truth. Great dynasties gathered riches, only to see them dispersed over generations. Communities prospered, declined, and were rebuilt by those who remembered old lessons. Even personal fortunes rose and fell, yet the circle always returned to its beginning, offering new opportunities for wisdom. What remains steady through this circle are the lessons learned along the way: patience in saving, caution in borrowing, balance in spending, and generosity in giving. These are not temporary strategies, but enduring truths. They guide through prosperity and through hardship, through youth and through age. To see finance as a circle is to release the fear of impermanence. Gains and losses are both temporary, and rest is not in holding them tightly, but in walking steadily around the curve, knowing each stage has its own rhythm. And when the circle feels complete, what remains is not the number in accounts, but the peace carried within. The greatest wealth is the quiet wisdom that each stage, dependence, growth, simplicity, has been lived with care. The quiet rest of enough. And so the journey draws to a close. We have walked through the tides of finance, the flow of money as it moves in cycles, the weight of debt carried patiently, the seeds of savings planted in silence. We have witnessed the storms of crises and the calm of simplicity, the lessons of contentment and the strength of resilience. Piece by piece, the picture has unfolded, not as a story of wealth beyond measure, but of peace within reach. Finance, when stripped of urgency, is not noise, but rhythm. It is the rhythm of daily choices, of work balanced with rest, of giving and receiving, of trusting tomorrow while inhabiting today. It is the soft recognition that life moves in seasons and that money follows, never truly still, never truly final. What lingers at the end is not the memory of abundance, but of balance. A quiet life shaped by enough. Enough to meet needs, enough to protect against storms, enough to share with others. Beyond this point, accumulation loses its meaning. Wealth without peace is only noise, but modest means, held with gratitude, can be richer than any empire. The great wisdom of financial life lies not in control, but in surrender. We cannot stop the tide, but we can float upon it calmly. We cannot predict every storm, but we can prepare with patience. We cannot own forever, but we can rest in the moment of enough. And in this surrender comes rest. To close the day without worry of bills. To sleep knowing that tomorrow, whatever it brings, can be met with steadiness. To awaken not with urgency, but with quiet assurance. This is the gentle wealth that outlasts numbers. A rested mind, a calm heart, a life that does not chase, but flows. As this storybook of finance fades into silence, let its final whisper remain. Wealth is not noise, nor struggle, nor endless desire. Wealth is the quiet evening, the slow breath, the knowledge that in patience and balance, one has found peace Rest now with these lessons held softly in memory. For the greatest prosperity is not what fills accounts, but what empties worry. And the truest abundance is this, the quiet rest of enough.